This is Crimson Moon, where every howl holds a secret. I'm Noktula, your storyteller. Tonight's story is a journey through love, power, and the pull of the bond. You're part of the pack now. Let's begin.
The moonlight ceremony shimmered with magic. Wolves from every corner of the Northern Ridge territory had gathered in the clearing beneath the glowing full moon. Lanterns flickered between trees, casting long shadows, while the scent of pine, bonfire smoke, and something ancient filled the air. Calla stood near the edge of the gathering, her heart hammering beneath her ribcage. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her silver dress, the fabric brushing her thighs in the cool evening breeze. Tonight she would meet her mate, or she wouldn't, and either outcome terrified her. "Stop pacing," her cousin Brenna muttered beside her, elbowing her lightly. "You're going to wear a path into the earth." "I'm not pacing," Calla lied. "Yes, you are. You've circled that tree 5 times in the last... Oh, look, now it's 6. Calla rolled her eyes but smiled, grateful for the small distraction. Then the drumming began. Low and rhythmic, it pulsed through the ground like a heartbeat. Elders emerged. From between the trees, cloaks lined with white fur, their faces grave. At their center stood Alpha Dorian Steele, massive, stern, with grey at his temples and power radiating from every pore. Behind him came his sons. Calla had never seen them up close before. Everyone knew the Steele twins, heirs to the largest and most powerful pack in the region, born under the blood moon, prophesied to bring unity or ruin, and gods. They were beautiful. Roman walked with an air of command, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair neatly cropped, chin lifted high, his wolf pressed close beneath his skin, a quiet threat. Then there was Riker, identical in bone structure, but wildly different in energy. His longish hair was tousled, his jaw shadowed with scruff, his body language loose and dangerous. One brother looked like a king, the other looked like a rebellion. Calla didn't realize she was staring until Roman's eyes met hers. Her breath caught. A jolt shot through her chest, warm, golden, unmistakable. Her wolf stirred, rising to attention. Roman's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. He stepped forward, and Calla knew. He was hers, or so she thought. "Calla Whitmore," Roman said, voice smooth and deep. "You're mine." The words sent a rush through her bloodstream, her wolf howling in recognition. She bowed her head slightly as he stepped close, the scent of cedar and steel enveloping her. Yes, she managed, stunned by the sheer force of him. "I felt it too." "Good," he said simply. "We'll speak after the ceremony." He brushed past her, but the weight of his presence lingered. Brenna grabbed her arm the moment he was gone. "Oh, my goddess." "Did you see that?" Calla whispered. He didn't even hesitate. "You just got claimed by Roman freaking Steele. The next Alpha. You're basically royalty now." Calla should have been thrilled, and part of her was. But another part, she looked toward the edge of the clearing, where Riker leaned against a tree, a bottle dangling from his fingers. His eyes met hers, and something strange sparked in her chest, a shadow of something that felt too much like a second pull. He didn't look away. Neither did she. The ceremony faded into background noise. Calla walked away from the crowd, needing air, silence, space to think. Her mate was Roman. Roman, not Riker. It was clear, simple, done. So why was she still thinking about the wrong twin? "Running away already?" A voice drawled behind her. She turned. Riker stood there, lazy smirk on his lips, bottle still in hand. His gaze flicked over her, unreadable. "I'm not running." "Could have fooled me," she frowned. "I just needed a minute." Riker stepped closer, shadows dancing across his face. "So, Roman, huh?" "I didn't choose it," she replied, trying to sound stronger than she felt. "No, the moon did," He took a swig from his bottle. She makes strange choices sometimes. Calla tilted her head. Is that bitterness I hear? Just observation. He stepped even closer. You know, the bond, it doesn't always get it right. Sometimes what's fated and what's right aren't the same thing. That's a dangerous opinion. Yeah, he said with a lazy grin. That's kind of my thing. Then he was gone, disappearing into the dark like smoke. The next week was a blur. Calla moved into the Alpha quarters, adjusting to the cold. Stone hallways, the overwhelming staff, and the constant presence of Roman. He was dutiful, polite, even kind at times, but never warm. Their connection felt more like an arrangement than a romance. Still, the bond grew. Every day, her body responded to his more quickly. Her wolf grew quiet in his presence, safe, comfortable, but never thrilled. Roman kissed her for the first time under the moonlight. It was soft, controlled, measured. He pulled away before it could become anything more. I want to do things right, he said. No rushing, no claiming until you're ready. She nodded, grateful, but also strangely disappointed. Later, that night, unable to sleep, she wandered the manor and found herself in the south wing, the part Roman told her to avoid. There, in the quiet, she heard a guitar. Drawn by curiosity, she followed the sound to a small stone balcony. Riker sat cross-legged on the railing, strumming an old guitar with half a bottle beside him. You're not supposed to be here, he said without turning around. You're not supposed to be drinking on rooftops. He grinned. We all break rules in our own way. Calla sat on the bench, heart thudding. Why don't you live with the rest of the family? Because I'm not really part of it. He strummed harder. Roman's the heir, the favorite, the good son. I'm the reminder that sometimes the moon gives us two options and picks the wrong one. She didn't know what to say to that, so instead, she listened. The guitar sang into the night, and Riker played as if every note was a wound. It started with a touch, warm, rough fingers against her cheek, a hand slipping into her hair, breath against her throat. Calla moaned softly in her sleep, her body arching into the phantom sensation. Then she saw his face, not Roman, Riker. She jolted awake. The dream clung to her, sticky and treacherous. Her wolf was restless, pacing beneath her skin. What the hell was that? She splashed cold water on her face, trying to chase away the heat that pooled low in her stomach. It meant nothing. Dreams meant nothing, didn't they? Downstairs, Roman greeted her with a warm nod, pouring her tea like every other morning. She forced a smile, guilt twisting in her chest. He didn't deserve her confusion. He was trying. He was gentle. He would make a good alpha, and she had to make peace with the bond. Later that day, while organizing scrolls in the archive room, she brushed hands with Riker. Accidentally, a spark jolted between them. His eyes met hers. He pulled back like she'd burned him. Don't. What? Don't touch me again. Not like that. Her throat tightened. Why not? Because, he said, voice raw. I don't have a mate bond to blame it on. And then he was gone, and Calla was left wondering if fate had chosen the wrong twin. Calla didn't see Riker for 2 days. Not in the training fields. Not at meals. Not during the morning gatherings where Roman delivered orders to the elite guard. It should have been a relief, but instead it gnawed at her. Roman noticed. You're quiet this morning, he said, handing her a piece of buttered toast as they sat on the Alpha balcony. I'm tired, she said, not meeting his eyes. You've been tired a lot lately. She nodded and forced a small smile. Maybe I'm still adjusting. Roman's brow furrowed. Are you having doubts? The words hit too close. I'm just overwhelmed, she lied. That's all. He didn't look convinced. Roman was perceptive, dangerously so. That was part of what made him a good alpha. He studied her, then leaned forward. I know this bond feels like a chain sometimes, he said. But I don't want to be that for you, Calla. I want us to build something strong. But we can only do that if you're honest with me. She hesitated. I am, and she wanted to be. She just didn't know how. Later, walking through the forest trails that bordered the steel lands, she stumbled upon a patrol unit training, and there he was. Riker, stripped to the waist, muscles flexing as he sparred with a younger warrior. His movements were raw, aggressive, fast. Nothing about him was polished like Roman, but there was something far more magnetic in that chaos. He saw her, but didn't acknowledge her, until the match ended. "You're following me now," he said, toweling off his face. "I was walking. I didn't know you'd be here." "Right." He tossed the towel aside. "Well, you found me. What now?" "Nothing," she said, forcing a steady voice. "I'm not here to play games." "Good," Riker said, stepping closer, his expression hard. "Because this isn't a game." "You think I don't know that?" "I think you're playing. At being innocent," he snapped. "But you knew exactly what you were doing the night you sat with me under the stars." "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "You're someone's mate. My brother's mate." His jaw tightened. "So yeah, Calla, it's wrong." But he didn't leave, and neither did she. That night, Calla sat in the library with Brenna, books open in front of them, except Calla hadn't turned a page in over an hour. "All right," Brenna said, closing her book. "What's going on?" "What do you mean? You haven't spoken more than 5 words since we got here. You keep sighing, and you're staring at the same page like it holds the secrets of the universe." Calla blinked, then set the book down. "It's nothing." Brenna raised a brow. "Lie again, and I'm throwing you in the river." Calla hesitated, then glanced around and lowered her voice. "Have you ever heard of someone feeling the pull toward more than one person?" "You mean like 2 mates?" Brenna frowned. "That's not how it works. The moon chooses. There's one." "But what if it feels like there's 2? Brenna was quiet for a moment. "Calla," she said carefully, "what are you asking me?" Calla stared at the bookshelf. "Nothing. Forget I said anything." But Brenna didn't forget. The next morning, whispers rippled through the pack like wildfire. It started small, an overheard conversation, a strange look, a careless comment in the mess hall. But by midday, Calla could feel the shift in the air. Something had changed. Roman found her near the stables, his expression dark. "Come with me." She followed without question, heart racing, until they reached the war room, empty. "Except for them. What is it?" she asked. He closed the door. "There's talk," he said, voice tight, "that you've been seen with Riker, alone." Calla froze. "We haven't done anything wrong." "You kissed my brother." Her breath stopped. "What?" Roman's eyes were cold. "Don't bother denying it. He told me. Said it was a mistake." Calla's heart dropped. Riker told him. I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. Roman stepped back, pain flashing behind his anger. "You were mine, chosen by the moon, and you kissed my brother?" "I didn't plan it. I didn't want it to happen. It was just a mistake," he finished flatly. Like he said. Calla swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." He turned away. "I need space. From you. From this." "Roman, go." She left with her heart in pieces. That evening, Calla found Riker in the old chapel ruins, half collapsed and overgrown with moss, his favourite hiding place since childhood, according to Brenna. He was sitting on the cracked altar, lighting a cigarette with a match that sputtered in the wind. "You told him," she said. Riker didn't flinch. "Yeah." "Why?" "Because I'd rather he hear it from me than from some drunk warrior with too many opinions. I thought you weren't the noble one." "I'm not." He blew out smoke. "But I still don't like lying." Calla sat on the broken stone steps, arms wrapped around her knees. You said it was a mistake. It was. That hurt more than she expected. But it wasn't just that, was it? She asked. Riker was silent for a long moment. Then he flicked the cigarette away. No, he said finally. It wasn't just that. She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. Then what was it? A glimpse, he said, of something I'll never have. He stood and left her there. The next day, Calla asked to join the patrol. Roman approved with a nod, but didn't speak to her, not once. She rode ahead with the others, pretending not to notice his silence. They passed the borderlands, dense with fog and treacherous terrain, and stopped at a ridge overlooking the Rogue Valley. The scout captain pointed. Fresh tracks, 4, maybe 5 rogues. Roman gestured to split up. Groups of 2, check the east and south lines. Calla ended up paired with Riker, of course. They moved silently through the trees until they found a blood trail, minor, but enough to suggest a rogue was injured. Calla knelt by the soil. Still warm, she murmured. Riker crouched beside her. They're close. She didn't look at him. You said it wasn't just a mistake. I know what I said. Then, stop running from it. He stood and pulled her up by the wrist, his eyes blazing. You think this is easy for me? You think I don't wake up wanting you in ways I shouldn't? She stared at him, stunned. Roman is my brother, Riker said. He raised me when our mother died, protected me when I couldn't shift for years. He's the reason I'm alive. And I didn't ask to be bound to either of you, she snapped. The moon chose him. My heart didn't. His hand trembled against hers. I wish I could unfeel you, he said. Then do it, she whispered. Let me go. But neither of them moved. Then came a growl. Not from them, from the trees. They turned just as the rogue lunged from the fog, teeth bared, claws slashing. And suddenly, there was no time left to talk about hearts or choices. Only blood, only survival, only instincts. Calla's shoulder hit the ground hard. The rogue's claws slashed her arm, blood soaking into her sleeve. Pain lanced through her, but her wolf surged forward, furious and primal. She kicked the rogue off her with a sharp heel to its chest and rolled to her feet, claws out, eyes glowing. Riker was already mid-shift, bone cracking and fur bursting across his body. His wolf was massive, dark grey, almost black, and brutal in its fury. He collided with the rogue mid-air and slammed it to the ground with a bone-rattling crunch. Calla shifted too, her own wolf smaller but fast. Together, they fought as one. Her speed, his strength. When the last rogue dropped with a whimper, her jaw was stained red, her breath ragged. Riker shifted back first, panting, his shoulder bleeding. You good? He asked, eyes scanning her body. She nodded, shifting back too, ignoring the sting as her clothes reformed. You? I've had worse. They stood there in the blood-soaked snow, breathing heavily, too close. Riker's hand brushed hers. She flinched. Not from pain, but from the sudden jolt of heat. We shouldn't have fought like that, he murmured. Not together. You mean we shouldn't have won? I mean we felt everything, he said quietly. Every move, every thought. Calla swallowed hard. I know. Back at the compound, the healers worked quickly. Calla's wounds weren't serious, but the moment they peeled back her shirt, one of them, an older woman named Mira, froze. Roman stood in the room with arms crossed, watching silently. Riker had been treated separately, and no one spoke to him. What is it? Calla asked Mira, shifting on the cot. The healer met her gaze carefully. You're marked by Alpha Roman. Yes, but the bond isn't holding. Calla blinked. What? Mira touched the edges of the mark. It's weakening. The energy is unstable. That's not supposed to happen unless... She trailed off. Unless? Roman's voice was sharp. Unless her wolf is rejecting it, Mira finished. The room went cold. Calla felt like the floor had vanished beneath her. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would that happen?" Roman stepped closer, jaw tight. "Because bonds can only be forced so far before they snap." "I didn't force anything," she said quickly. "No," he said. "But your heart isn't here. And your wolf knows it." The silence was deafening. "I'm sorry," Calla whispered. Roman turned and walked out without a word. Calla found Riker on the cliff ledge behind the compound, smoking again. "You shouldn't be here," he said, without turning around. "I needed air." He let the silence stretch. "My bond with Roman is breaking," she said finally. That made him look at her. She sat beside him, knees drawn up. "The healer said my wolf is rejecting it." He exhaled a slow breath. "So it's happening." "What is?" He gave her a long look. "Your wolf's choosing," she swallowed. "You?" "I felt it that day in the woods," Riker said quietly. "You moved before I did. You knew where I'd strike. You felt me." She nodded. "I think we were supposed to be mates," he said. Calla's heart pounded. "But the bond went to Roman instead," he continued. "Because he's the heir. Because he was chosen. Not me." "But why would the moon make a mistake?" "I don't think she did," he murmured. "I think she let us choose, and we all lied." Calla stared at him. "I didn't lie." "No," he said. "But maybe Roman did. Or maybe I did. I didn't stop it when I should have. I saw you walk toward him that night. I knew. But I didn't say a word." "Why not?" His voice broke. "Because I've never had anything that was truly mine. And I thought maybe, if I stayed quiet long enough, I'd get to keep a piece of you." That evening, the elders met in the great hall. Calla was summoned alongside Roman and Riker. The air was tense, the fire crackling in the hearth the only sound for several long seconds. "The bond is unstable," Elder Lynn said, her voice clipped, "and unstable bonds endanger the pack." Calla kept her eyes low. Roman stood beside her, face unreadable. Riker leaned against a pillar across the room, arms crossed. "The alpha heir cannot have a mate whose wolf resists him," Lynn continued. "We must consider alternatives." "You want me to reject her," Roman said flatly. "Or she must choose, openly, and in front of the pack," Lynn said. "But if she breaks the bond on her own, it will trigger a frenzy in her wolf. It could kill her." "I'll reject her," Roman said suddenly. Calla's head snapped up. "I won't let her suffer," he continued. "Not because of my pride." Elder Lynn nodded solemnly. "The ceremony will be held tomorrow, at moonrise. Afterward, she would be unbonded, free. But the cost would be her place in the pack, and the safety of everything she'd known." Moonrise came too fast. The whole pack gathered at the stone altar. Calla stood in a white shift, barefoot on the grass. Roman faced her, dressed in formal robes. His jaw was tight, eyes distant, but not cruel. "I, Alpha Roman Steel," he said, voice strong. "Release Calla Whitmore from the mate bond. May the moon bless her journey, wherever it may lead." The mark on her collarbone burned once, then faded into nothing. Calla swayed, catching herself. Her wolf roared in her head, mourning the loss of something ancient and holy. But another voice, familiar and strong, rose to meet it. "Not him. Not mine." Calla opened her eyes. Roman looked at her, softer now. "I hope you find what you're looking for." "I'm sorry," she said. "So am I." He stepped back, and Riker stepped forward, not touching, not speaking, just there. Calla turned to him, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what comes next." "We burn the map," Riker said, "and we make our own path." And as the wolves around them watched in silence, two hearts chose what fate would not. Calla was unbonded now, untethered, and the pack treated her like it. No one said anything outright, but they didn't need to. The silence in the mess hall was louder than any words. Conversation stopped when she entered. Warriors looked past her instead of at her. Even Brenna was careful, her hugs shorter, her eyes more uncertain. "You didn't do anything wrong," Brenna whispered after lunch that day. "I broke a sacred bond," Calla said, folding her arms tightly, "even if it wasn't the right one. You followed your wolf. That's never wrong. Tell that to the rest of them." Calla knew the truth. An unbonded she-wolf who'd rejected an alpha was dangerous, unpredictable. Packs didn't know where to place someone like that. Too strong to ignore, too disloyal to trust. So they isolated her instead. Only Riker stood beside her. He waited outside her quarters every morning. Now wordless and steady. They didn't speak much during the day, but at night they walked the border trails in silence, their steps in sync, their wolves humming under their skin. Tonight, she stopped under a tree with silver leaves and turned to him. "Why haven't you tried to claim me yet?" Riker looked at her, shadows flickering in his eyes. "Because you've already lost one bond. I'm not about to shove another one down your throat." "I'm not fragile. I know. But you're still healing." She nodded slowly. "So we wait." "We wait," he confirmed, brushing her fingers with his. But not forever. 2 days later, Elder Lynn summoned them both. They entered the council chamber together, Riker's arm brushing against hers as they stepped through the arched doorway. The elders sat in a circle, cold and quiet, eyes gleaming like glass. "You've caused unrest," Lynn said without preamble. "And disruption." "Truth causes discomfort," Riker replied evenly. Lynn's lips twitched. "Spoken like a rogue." "Is that what you want?" Calla asked. "To cast us out?" Lynn didn't answer. Instead, she turned to Roman, who stood in the corner like a statue. Silent, withdrawn. "The bond is broken," Lynn said. "The people are unsettled. There are whispers that you, Riker, are seeking to claim her next." "Is that illegal?" Riker asked. "No, but it's unwise and dangerous." Calla's voice rang out, strong and clear. "To whom?" Lynn's gaze darkened. "To the balance we've built." Roman spoke then, finally. "I don't believe exiling them is the answer." Calla stiffened. Riker blinked, surprised. "You don't?" Lynn asked, skeptical. Roman shook his head slowly. "They didn't lie. Not really. The moon bond failed. That's not their fault." Calla met his eyes. He didn't look angry anymore, just tired. "But they don't belong here anymore," Roman added. "Let them go. Let them make a life elsewhere." Calla's heart stung at the finality in his voice. She nodded once. "We'll leave tonight." Riker said nothing, just took her hand. The forest beyond the steel compound felt colder somehow. Calla wrapped her coat tighter around herself as they moved deeper into the southern borderlands. They'd packed light, just essentials, and left quietly, without a farewell. No one had stopped them, not even Brenna. "They'll forget us quickly," Calla said softly. "No, they won't," Riker replied, not looking back. "They'll talk about us for years, but only when the fire's low and no one else can hear." They made camp in an old hunter's den, a hollowed-out cabin left to rot. Riker set traps, cleaned the fireplace, reinforced the broken door. Calla gathered herbs and cleaned out dust from the shelves. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. On the 4th day, Riker brought in a wounded doe and laid it on the table. "You hunted?" she asked, surprised. "I'm not just chaos and sarcasm," he said, grinning. He cooked while she boiled water and organized bedding. They moved around each other easily, like they'd always known how. Later that night, as the fire flickered, low, Calla sat beside him on the cot. "Do you miss him?" she asked. "Roman?" She nodded. Riker leaned back against the wall, arms folded. "Yeah, I do. Silence stretched between them. But I don't regret this, he added. Not for 1 second. Calla reached for his hand. Neither do I. Calla shifted at dawn, her wolf bursting free in the snow-covered woods. The forest sang beneath her paws, clean, crisp, untamed. But something was wrong. She stopped abruptly, near the creek, ears twitching. Her wolf felt pulled, not by danger, by something ancient. Riker's wolf appeared beside hers, dark and massive, matching her pace without effort. They ran together for a while, then slowed when the trees opened into a sunlit clearing, with a strange symbol etched into a stone altar. Calla shifted back, breath misting in the air. Riker followed suit. What is this? She asked. He knelt, by the stone. The twin sigil, he said, brushing snow off the carved shape. It's from an old legend. What kind of legend? Riker looked up at her. That the moon goddess doesn't always assign bonds. Sometimes she offers choices. Twin-born wolves were the exception, allowed to follow the wolf that burned brightest for them. Calla stepped closer. So, this wasn't an accident? No, Riker whispered. It was a test. And we failed it? He stood, brushing off his hands. No. I think we're the first ones who passed. That night, Riker made a fire in the old stone pit behind the cabin. The stars were so clear, it felt like they were standing inside the sky itself. Calla stood barefoot in the snow, her wolf keeping her warm. She turned slowly toward him. No more waiting, she said softly. Riker stepped forward, gaze locked on hers. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He didn't lunge, didn't rush. He simply reached out and touched. Her face, his thumb, tracing the edge of her jaw. Calla's breath hitched, then his lips met hers. Slow at first, reverent, then hungrier. Fierce. Years of restraint melted in the heat between them. Her hands tangled in his hair, his fingers curled at her waist. When he pulled away, forehead resting against hers, he whispered, I'm not marking you tonight. Not unless you ask me to. I don't need to ask, she murmured. You already belong to me. He grinned. Still. Consent is sexy. She laughed. And then they kissed again and again until the fire burned low and the stars faded into dawn. They didn't need a bond to prove they belonged together. But the bond was coming. And this time, it would be real. Calla woke to Riker's arm draped over her waist, his breath steady against her neck. It felt different now. Settled. Whole. Her wolf purred beneath her skin, content in a way it had never been, even when bonded to Roman. She slid out from under the blanket carefully and stepped outside, barefoot in the snow, her breath curling in the pale blue morning light. The forest was silent. Then she felt it, a pulse beneath her ribs, warm, strong, and unmistakably alive. She pressed, her hand to her chest. The bond, it was forming, not forced, not summoned, just there, rooted deep, blooming slowly. Behind her, Riker stepped out, shirtless and rumpled, rubbing a hand through his hair. I felt it, he said quietly. Your wolf called mine this time. She nodded, eyes shining. It's happening. He moved beside her, eyes fixed on the trees. We should tell no one. Her smile faded. You think they'd come for us? They'd see this as a threat, Riker murmured. 2 wolves outside the Alpha's reach, bonded without a ceremony. Unapproved, especially you, Calla frowned. Why me? Because you're not just the girl who broke a bond. You're the girl who chose the brother. The letter came in the mouth of a crow. Calla found it perched on the woodpile, eyes gleaming, the envelope bound in black wax. The seal wasn't steel. It was the mark of the Red Crest Pack, a rival faction known for blood politics and rogue warfare. She turned the letter over as Riker entered from the forest. "What is it?" he asked, sensing the tension. She handed it over. He broke the seal. "To the traitor and his claimed mate, your freedom is a danger. Your bond is an insult. If the Steels won't act, we will. Return to your alpha, or be hunted like rogues." 3 days. Riker crushed the letter in his fist. "They're calling our bluff. They think Roman let us go because we were weak," Calla said, "or because he couldn't bear to kill us himself." They were silent for a moment. 3 days, Riker said. "We need to decide. Do we run or do we fight?" "We fight," Calla answered without hesitation. "I won't run from a world that wants me ashamed for choosing my own damn mate." His eyes glowed golden. "Then we prepare." That night, Riker left to find someone he hadn't spoken to in years, his old mentor, a rogue named Mace who once taught him to fight dirty, to win when honor didn't matter, and survival was the only goal. Calla stayed behind to fortify the cabin, but the forest pressed close with unease. The bond was still knitting itself into her bones, still vulnerable. Her wolf itched with warning. Then, just past midnight, footsteps crunched outside. She grabbed the iron dagger from under the hearth and moved to the door. It creaked open before she touched it, and Roman stepped through. Her breath caught. He looked older somehow, thinner, like he hadn't slept since she left. "I didn't come to hurt you," he said softly. "I came to warn you." Calla didn't lower the blade. "You already warned us. You let us go." "I let you go," he echoed bitterly. "And now they think I'm weak." "Who?" "The elders. The border packs. Red Crest." He stepped closer. "They've called for blood moon trials," Roman said, "to challenge our leadership, and you're part of the reason." Calla narrowed her eyes. "You're here to bring me back?" "I'm here to ask you, beg you, not to fight. Under their banner, if they take you in, claim you as a rogue bonded outside the rites, you'll die, Calla. They'll make an example of you." She hesitated. "And what if I came back under yours?" "I could protect you," Roman said. "I still have that much power." "But I'd have to lie again," she whispered. "I'd have to pretend this bond, what Riker and I have, isn't real." His silence answered for him. She shook her head. "I won't do that again. Not even for you." Roman's jaw clenched, but he stepped back. "Then I hope he's strong enough to die for you," and he was gone. Riker came back at dawn with Mace in tow. Mace looked like death incarnate. Scarred face, leather coat, blind in one eye. But he smiled when he saw Calla, his canines long and sharp. "So this is the she-wolf that broke the future," Mace rasped. Good, it was a shitty future anyway. Calla liked him instantly. They trained for 2 days, hard, no rules, no mercy. Calla bled, Riker bruised, but they got faster, deadlier, sharper together. Mace drilled them on dirty tactics, trap setting, and using their bond mid-fight. By the end of the second night, Calla could shift and link minds with Riker without hesitation. Their wolves moved like a single body. "I've never seen 2 wolves do that without a mating ceremony," Mace muttered, half in awe. "We didn't need a ceremony," Riker said. "We needed to survive," Mace grinned. "Then let's make sure you keep doing that." But just as they finished burying tripwire and marking blind spots outside the cabin, a horn blew in the distance. 3 sharp blasts. Pack challenge. Blood Moon trials had begun, and Calla was being summoned. The blood moon bathed the sky in red. Calla stood in the center of the ritual circle with Riker on her left and Mace on her right. Roman faced her across the field, flanked by Elder Lyn and 2 unfamiliar alphas from the eastern ridges. The gathering crowd watched in tense silence. "This trial is not a duel," Lyn called out. "It is a test of loyalty, of bond, and of right." She pointed to Calla. "You were bonded to Alpha Roman steel. You broke that bond." "I didn't break it," Calla said, voice calm and steady. It broke itself. Yet you chose his brother, Lin hissed. You created a bond outside the moon's rights. Unblessed, unwitnessed, unlawful. Calla looked to the sky. The moon witnessed. She always does. Gasps rippled. Lin straightened. You stand accused of violating sacred law. You may choose trial by exile or trial by combat. I choose combat, Calla said before anyone could speak. Roman stepped forward. No! She fights me. Roman, Riker growled. I need this, Roman said, eyes locked on Calla. Let me finish it. Calla met his gaze. If I win, we walk free. No more threats, no more whispers. Roman nodded. And if I win, you come back to the pack. No, Riker snarled. That's not... It's her decision, Roman said. Calla turned to Riker and kissed his temple softly. I won't lose. Then she stepped into the circle. The horn sounded, and everything faded, except the wolf, the fire, and the choice she had made. The ritual circle was silent, except for the beating of hearts. Calla shifted first. Her bones cracked, fur blooming over her skin like flame. Her wolf stood lean and tall, eyes glowing gold under the blood moon. She didn't growl. She didn't bare her teeth. She waited. Roman shifted a second later, his wolf larger, armored in thick grey-black fur. Strong, intimidating. The alpha's wolf, born for dominance. The circle narrowed. Calla moved, fast. Her wolf darted beneath his swing and raked her claws across his side. Not deep, not fatal. A warning. Roman snarled and lunged. Their bodies collided mid-air, fur and claws and teeth tangling as they tumbled across the snow-slick grass. Roman pinned her briefly, his fangs snapping inches from her throat. But she twisted free, landing behind him, her claws dragging down his flank. She didn't want to kill him, but she would if she had to. She backed up, tail flicking, daring him to make the next move. Roman's wolf hesitated. In that instant, she saw the man inside the beast, conflicted, grieving, furious, not just about losing her, but about losing the path the moon had laid out for him. The mate, the heir, the legacy. Calla's wolf let out a long, mournful howl. Then she struck. Her claws slashed his shoulder. He roared in pain, staggering. Calla didn't press the advantage. She let him fall back, let him breathe. Then she shifted back, standing in, her human form, bloodied, bruised, bare under the moon. Roman shifted too, slower this time. His face was pale, chest heaving. I yield, he said, his voice cracking. The crowd erupted into gasps and murmurs. Elder Lin stepped forward. This is not done. It is, Roman said firmly. She won. She fought with honor. She has my blood on her hands. Let it be enough. Lin's jaw clenched. Calla locked eyes with her. I warned you. I won't be erased. And for the first time, Lin looked unsure. The blood moon faded by morning. Calla and Riker returned to the cabin in silence. Mace stayed behind to keep an eye on the pack's political fallout. He promised to report back in a few days. Riker built a fire while Calla sat with a steaming cup between her hands, watching the flames, her mind replaying the fight in endless loops. She could still feel Roman's blood on her skin. He yielded, Riker said, breaking the silence. I didn't want to hurt him. I know. Calla looked up at him. But I would have. Riker sat beside her, knees brushing. I know that too. She took a breath. The worst part is, I didn't feel anything afterward. No guilt, no grief, just relief. Maybe because you've been carrying the guilt for months, Riker said. And now it's gone, like your wolf finally knows you're safe. I don't think we're safe yet. Riker leaned back on his hands. No, but we're together. She turned toward him. We should bond. His eyes searched, hers. Are you ready? She nodded. I'm not afraid anymore. I want you, completely. No secrets, no shadows, No what-ifs. He reached for her hand. Then let's do it properly. Under the stars. Just us. No firelight. No witnesses. Just the moon. Her heart swelled. It wasn't about territory, power, or approval. It was about choice. They stood at the edge of the ravine where the stars spilled like liquid silver overhead. No ceremony, no robes, no markings. Calla wore nothing but her wolf skin, flickering just beneath her human form. Riker stood before her, eyes glowing, chest rising and falling with slow, even breaths. Say it, she whispered. I, Riker Steele, offer you my bond, not because the moon commands it, because I do. She smiled. And I, Calla Whitmore, accept it, not because I have to, but because I choose to. He reached forward, brushing his fingers over her jaw, then down to her collarbone. His mark bloomed beneath his touch, slow, golden, warm. Unlike the one Roman gave her, this one didn't burn. It sang. Her own hand found his chest, fingers splayed, over his heart, her mark lit beneath his ribs, and suddenly, it wasn't just the two of them. Their wolves rose from their skin, circling, merging, howling in perfect harmony. A true bond, a chosen one. When it was done, she fell into his arms, not because she was weak, but because she'd finally found where she belonged. Mace returned too, days later with blood on his knuckles. They're imploding, he said as he entered the cabin, brushing snow off his coat. Lynn's trying to call a full council summit. She wants Roman replaced. Calla stood. Replaced by who? Mace smirked. Guess. No, Riker said immediately. She wouldn't. She is, Mace cut in. She's naming you, Riker, as her proposed candidate. Calla blinked. But she tried to exile you. And now she's spinning. The story says Roman's weakness led to war, that your victory over him proves you were the rightful heir all along. Riker paced the floor. It's a trap. Calla crossed her arms. Or it's desperation. Mace's face darkened. She thinks if she gets one of you under her control, she can undo this whole choice bond rebellion you started. Riker looked at Calla. I won't let her drag us back into that world. But Calla stepped forward. Maybe we don't have to play by her rules. Maybe we show up and make new ones. Riker's eyes sharpened. You're thinking like an alpha. She smiled faintly. You started it. The next full moon brought them back to Steel Lands. Roman greeted them at the gates, flanked by guards, but they didn't raise their weapons. He looked between them. You're back. We're not here to fight, Calla said. We're here to speak. Inside the council chamber, Elder Lynn sat in her high chair like a queen waiting to crown a puppet. She gestured to Riker. Do you accept nomination? As Alpha Heir? Riker stepped forward. No. Murmurs broke out across the room. Calla stepped beside him. But we accept leadership. Just not under you. Lynn narrowed her eyes. That's not how this works. It is now, Riker said calmly. The old ways are breaking. You can either cling to the past, or we can build something better. Roman rose from his seat, and to everyone's shock, he said, I step down. Lynn gasped. You're right. I failed, Roman said. But not because I let them go, because I tried to make fate fit my expectations. He turned to Riker. Take the title, not from force, from me, and lead the way you choose, too. Riker looked at Calla. She nodded once. I accept. Elder Lynn stood. Then the council must approve. No, Calla interrupted. The people will. And outside, in the open square, beneath the eyes of every steel wolf, Calla and Riker stood side by side as howls rose around them. Not chosen by force, not by tradition, but by will, by freedom, by a bond no one could deny. The Alpha's seat had never fit Riker, too rigid, too ceremonial. But now, standing at the top of the council chamber beside Calla, her presence fierce, grounded and steady, He didn't feel like an imposter. He felt dangerous. The pack was watching them. Every step, every command, every glance between them was dissected and whispered about. The old guard waited for him to stumble. The young wolves looked at him with something close to reverence. Calla kept meetings tight and clean, speaking with confidence, even when Riker second-guessed himself. She'd grown sharper since the bond. Not colder, just more certain. "We need to talk about Red Crest," she said during their third morning council. "They'll come, and we're not prepared." "They won't," Elder Lynn cut in. She was still on the council, though her power had dwindled. "Now that Steel's power structure has settled, they'll back off." "No," Mace said from the shadows near the wall. "They're waiting for chaos, and they smell blood." Riker's jaw flexed. "Then we give them none." Calla nodded. "I want border teams doubled, patrols on a rotating schedule, and we send a formal notice to Red Crest. Any violation of our land will be considered an act of war." A few gasped. Lynn stood slowly. "You're poking a bear." "No," Calla said, eyes flashing. "I'm showing the bear we have claws too." Riker watched her and smiled. Later that day, Roman joined them privately in the Alpha's quarters. Calla had her boots off, curled on the worn leather couch with a mug in hand. Riker leaned over maps at the table. Roman stood, arms crossed, watching them both. "You're making the right moves," he said after a long silence. Riker looked up. That almost sounded like a compliment. Roman gave a tight smile. "You're still a reckless bastard, but you're protecting them. That's what matters." Calla sat forward. "They respect you, Roman. If you stand with us publicly, help us negotiate the Red Crest truce, it'll send a message." Roman's brows lifted. "You want me to play diplomat now?" "You're the only one they'd listen to without drawing a blade," Riker said. "You share bloodlines with their alpha." Roman blinked. "Half-blooded, through our mother." Calla tilted her head. "And you never mentioned this. Why?" "Because our mother was ashamed of that tie," Roman replied coldly. "She believed loyalty should be clean. Mine wasn't." Riker stepped forward. "So what? You think yours and mine ever was?" Calla cut in. "What matters is whether you'll use that bloodline now, to stop a war." Roman looked at her, then at Riker. "I'll try." Elder Lynn made her final play under moonlight. She called a private council, illegally summoning loyalists, old families, and those still reeling from Roman's fall. By the time Mace got wind of it, half the guard was already in on the meeting. Riker moved fast. He and Calla entered the inner chamber before Lynn could finish her declaration. She stood at the altar in full ceremonial robes, her voice rising with righteous fury. "You gave power to a bond formed in rebellion," she snarled. "They disrespected tradition. They built a new one," Calla snapped. Riker stepped forward. "And you broke our laws the moment you gathered this council without authority." "I am authority," Lynn hissed. "No," Roman said from the doorway. "You're a remnant," gasps echoed. Lynn spun to face him. "You gave up your claim and found my purpose," Roman said evenly, "which is keeping this pack from being ruled by fear and rot." Calla raised her voice. "You're stripped of council rights, Lynn. Effective now. You don't have the power." "The people gave it to me," Calla said. "And if you challenge that again, it won't be with words." Lynn looked at Riker, then at Roman, and she saw it. Her time was done. She stepped down and walked out in silence. The next morning, they buried the old ways. Literally. The traditional shrine that housed the ceremonial mate brands, each name carved into stone with matching marks burned in skin, was set on fire. Calla lit the match. She dropped it into the dry timber and stepped back as flames devoured centuries of control disguised as destiny. Mace stood beside her, arms folded. "You sure about this?" "Yes. They'll come for you." "They already did. I'm still standing." Smoke curled into the sky as wolves gathered around the blaze. Some cried, some prayed, most were silent. Rika joined her, arms circling, her waist from behind. "You did this," he murmured. "You changed everything." "We did." He kissed the top of her head. Roman watched from a distance, expression unreadable. Then he turned, cloak sweeping behind him, and disappeared into the trees. 2 weeks passed. No war came, no messengers from Red Crest, no ambushes, only calm. Calla stood on the edge of the border cliffs, wind lifting her hair, the valley below painted in early autumn gold. Rika approached, his shirt half-buttoned, scent familiar and grounding. "You're avoiding the feast," he said. "It's strange, being celebrated. You earned it." She looked at him. "I broke a bond. I defied a pack. I nearly caused civil war." He grinned. "Yeah, that's why they love you." She turned. "You think this lasts?" "I don't know." They stood together, quiet. "But if it doesn't," he added, "then we burn what comes next and build again." She smiled. Her bond mark glowed faintly under her skin. The moon hadn't chosen this path. She had, and that made all the difference. It began with a tremor, a rumble beneath the forest floor that jolted Calla awake. She sat up in the dark, heart pounding, hand instinctively reaching for Rika beside her. He was already up, pulling a shirt over his head, eyes scanning the shadows. "You felt that too," he muttered. It wasn't natural. The tremor passed, but its echo didn't. By morning, reports trickled in from the outer border. Trees split, a hunting patrol scattered by a deep growl that came from nowhere. No signs of a rogue, no scent trail, only symbols, carved into rocks, pressed into the soil. Markings older than any pack. Jagged spirals, moons split in two, fangs circling eyes. Calla examined them near the southern ridge with Mace and Brenna. "It's a warning," Brenna said quietly. Mace spat. "It's worse than that." Calla narrowed her eyes. "You recognize it?" Mace hesitated. "There used to be whispers about a group that rejected the moon's chosen. Wolves who believed the goddess made a mistake creating mate bonds. You think they're behind this?" "I think," Mace said grimly. "They're not just a myth anymore." The first body appeared that night. One of the Eastern scouts, eyes removed, heart carved with a spiral. The same sigil found near the southern ridge. Rika called an emergency council, but this time, the energy was different. They weren't questioning him anymore. They were listening. "They call themselves the Hollowed," Roman said, speaking for the first time in 2 days. He had returned quietly after following old contacts through the rogue network. Calla's jaw clenched. "And?" "They believe that mate bonds are a leash, that the moon enslaved wolves to emotion, and the only path to freedom is to reject the bond, to break it." Rika glanced at her. "You're saying they kill bonded wolves?" "They don't just kill them," Roman said. "They purge them, burn the bond from both mates with blood magic. It kills most." A cold silence settled. "And you think they're coming for us?" Calla asked. Roman's face was unreadable. "You're the first known pair to publicly bond without the moon's mark, to choose it. They see you as a threat, or a symbol." Calla stood. "Then we prepare. We don't run." That night, Brenna found something buried in the shrine ruins, a shard of stone glowing faintly blue, humming with energy. She brought it to Calla. "This isn't just debris," she said, eyes wide. "It's moon shard." Calla frowned. "That's legend, a piece of the goddess herself." "Not just a piece, her voice," Brenna whispered. "It's how the first bond was created." Calla held it in her hand. It vibrated faintly and her wolf stirred. She saw flashes, a twin flame, a broken mark, a girl standing between light and dark, bleeding for choice. Then it was gone. Calla staggered back. "What did you see?" Brenna asked. "Not what," Calla whispered. "Who?" She touched her bond mark. "They're not after us. They're after what we represent. They think you'll awaken something, Brenna said softly. Or stop something, Calla corrected. And they're willing to kill every bonded wolf to make sure I don't. By the time the Hollowed reached the northern ridge, 6 bonded pairs had gone missing. No blood, no bodies, just the marks they once wore, burned into stone and left behind like trophies. Riker paced in the war tent, hands clenched. We should strike first, Mace growled. They want us to react, Calla countered. They want us to be angry and afraid. Riker's voice was low. I am afraid. Calla turned toward him, softening. So am I. He stepped closer. You said you chose me, not because of fate, not because of prophecy, but because you wanted me. She nodded. Still true. He cupped her cheek. Then whatever they try to do to us, to our bond, it won't work. They're too late. Calla leaned into him. But deep down, she felt it. The Moonshard's whisper still tugging at her soul. Something was coming, and it would demand everything. Calla dreamt of the moon, but not the one that hung in the sky. This one bled silver fire, its surface cracked. From the fractures, wolves howled, trapped, shattered. She stood at the edge of a cliff in that dream, holding the Moonshard, and heard one word echoed in her bones. Choose. She woke choking on air. Riker held her, shaking. Her awake, his bond flaring like a storm. I'm here, she gasped. I'm here. They stared at each other. I think I know what they want, she whispered. The Hollowed. They think the Moonshard can sever all bonds forever. If I unlock it, I could destroy the very idea of matehood. Riker's grip tightened. Or, set it free. Calla sat up slowly. What if the moon never meant for us to be forced into anything? She whispered. What if the bonds were only ever meant to be offered? Not fated? Riker met her gaze. Then it's time the world hears that. Calla stood, bare feet on the stone floor, the Moonshard glowing faintly in her hand. Not a weapon, not a curse, a key. And she was ready to use it. The wind shifted first. Calla stood atop the northern ridge, eyes fixed on the horizon. A mist moved, between the trees, unnatural, clinging, slow. Then came the scent, ash, blood, bone. They were here. The Hollow didn't announce themselves with battle cries. They emerged like smoke, hooded, masked wolves moving like wraiths, silent, dead-eyed. 12, then 24. More. Calla stepped forward, the Moonshard glowing in her hand. Riker stood beside her, mace on his left, Brenna and Roman flanking their sides with armed wolves behind them. The pack had gathered, every rank united, not for tradition, not for power, but for choice. You came for blood, Calla said, voice steady. The leader of the Hollowed stepped into the moonlight, tall, white-haired, face hidden beneath a twisted silver mask carved with broken moons. We came for correction, he said. You unmade the sacred order. I didn't unmake it, she replied. I refused it. The man tilted his head, then refused this. With one movement the Hollowed charged, but Calla didn't run. She raised the Moonshard, and the earth itself answered. The battlefield was chaos. Claws tore through flesh. Wolves collided mid-air. Screams pierced the forest as fire lit the trees. Calla moved like a force of nature. She didn't shift. She didn't need to. Her power was already breaking through her skin. The Moonshard pulsed like a heartbeat in, her palm glowing brighter with every Hollowed she passed. Calla! Riker shouted as he fought 3 at once, his wolf form brutal, bloodied but unyielding. I'm fine, she shouted back. Then she saw him, the masked leader, standing beyond the fireline, chanting in a tongue that wasn't of wolves. Calla ran. He raised a curved blade, moonstone embedded in its center. I'll sever your bond and the world will. Follow, he snarled. Calla gritted her teeth. You have no idea what I am. She raised the Moonshard. Their powers collided. Light and shadow, bond and void, and in that clash, Kala saw everything, the origin of the first bond, the moon offering, her heart to wolves not as command, but as gift. The truth long buried, matehood was never meant to enslave, it was meant to liberate. Kala screamed and released the shard's full power. The hollowed's blade shattered, the forest lit with silver, and every forced bond in the world broke. They buried the dead at dawn. 12 of their own, 25 hollowed. Mace lost 2 scouts. Brenner took a hit to the ribs, but survived. Roman stood through the entire ritual, silent, unmoving. Kala watched as the wind carried ash through the trees. "We won," Riker said beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "But it doesn't feel like a victory." "Because it isn't," she murmured. "Not yet." "The hollowed." "Gone," she said. "But their beliefs won't die easily. Too many wolves were taught to fear choice." Riker studied her. "And what do we do?" "We lead, not with fear, not with rules carved in stone." She looked at him. "With trust, with freedom." He smiled faintly. "You sound like an alpha." She laughed softly. "I'm not. You are," he said. "You always were." Kala didn't reply. But in that moment, she believed him. Later that week, Roman came to say goodbye. He stood in the war room, cloaked in leather, his hair tied back, eyes calm. "I'm leaving the territory," he said simply. Kala folded her arms. "Running," letting go. Riker didn't argue. Kala stepped forward. "Where will you go?" "To the Northern Isles. There's a rogue enclave rebuilding there. They could use a fighter who's seen too much." Kala's voice softened. "You don't have to exile yourself." He looked at her, and there was no bitterness in his eyes. "I do," he said. "But not for punishment, for peace." He extended his hand to Riker. They clasped arms. Then Roman nodded once, gave Kala a ghost of a smile, and walked out into the trees. No crown, no throne, just a man setting himself free. 6 moons later, the steel pack was no longer what it had been. There were no more forced mate brands, no ceremonies without consent. The shrine had been replaced with a circle of vows, where wolves chose to declare their bonds, or not, without fear. Kala and Riker ruled not as Alpha and Luna, but as partners. They shared power, responsibility, truth. And when Kala placed her hand over her lower belly, Riker stilled. She smiled. "You feel it?" she whispered. His eyes glowed gold. He dropped to his knees and kissed the space just above her navel. "We made something new," she said. "No," he whispered, forehead pressed to her skin. "You are something new, the first mate by choice. The first leader by love. The first mother of the future." And when she lifted her head to the stars that night, the moon no longer felt like a command. It felt like a sister, watching, smiling, and finally, free.